they still keep that, that bile, that bucolic rage that they have. But I think this time they're able to extend their palette a little bit more to include something that we may not have necessarily thought we would get from Vitriol. Hi guys, welcome back, and hello if you are new. I hope all of you have had a fantastic weekend. I am here to talk about a band that haven't released a record since 2019's To Bathe from the Throat of Cowardice. I am talking about Vitriol and their sophomore Century Media Records return in the form of Suffer and Become. In terms of their sound, I would say it's kind of like a mix between Niall's technicality, the intensity of a band like Origin, and then the kind of overall sheer power of Hate Eternal. So in terms of the album, it's kind of a Dante's Inferno Jungian kind of expose, I guess, where you delve further into the sort of various realms of hell and psychological hell, I guess, and then kind of reshaping that to allow a bit of light in and only a small of light in. Whereas I think Dissonance was very much their bedfellows on the previous record, I think that there's melody slowly but surely starting to creep in a lot more on Vitriol's material now. And instead of just, throwing you feet first as we did in the previous record, Shame in Its Afterbirth really kind of lulls you into a full sense of security, I think, with that sort of melody, which is slightly unhinged, and you kind of know that something weird is up before it all kind of mobilizes and really kind of picks up. And later on in the track, I think, has one of my favourite moments of the entire record, which is that sort of neoclassical guitar line with those incredible sweeps and an amazing key change as well. And whilst it is just as intense as, their previous record, I think it's a different kind of intensity. It's more focused rather than kind of scattershot where it has previously. And one of them, for example, is opening up space. So, for example, The Flowers of Sadism, I think, really does kind of open up a lot more space and allows a room to breathe, which I think is really important when you've got a band which are as intense as Vitriol. And then we've also got Nursing from the Mother Wound as well, which again allows for those melodies to kind of marinate a little bit rather than just being pummeled into submission non-stop. Midway through the album, we've also got the instrumental of Survival's Careening Inertia, which again acts as a bit of respite, from the craziness. But it's not to say that that doesn't keep the tension there, but it just allows for, I think, a little bit more of a returning aspect to the record. Another addition, I think, is a very, very light sprinkling of synths on this record. Flood of Predation or The Isolating Lie of Learning Another are two kind of good examples, but to be honest, it's kind of sort of omnipresent throughout the record, which I think really, again, adds to that sense of space and that sense of breathability. As you might have expected, the guitar work on here is absolutely fantastic. It's a blazing inferno of riffs and solos, melodies, all this sort of stuff, but comes together in a really, really nice way. As I mentioned, there's those sweeping sections from Shame in Its Afterbirth, but also Flowers of Sadism, I think, has a really interesting solo in there as well. But I have to say, in terms of solos, I would say the one that deals the most damage for me is Nursing from the Mother Wound. I think that's a short, sharp, shocking solo that does really, really well. So drums are probably one of the most important parts of Vitriol. It's an absolutely savage performance throughout the entire thing here. But for me, I think the biggest takeaway was the fact that there were moments here where it made me sort of have almost like a black metal sort of feel, particularly with the way that they were putting the blast beats together. And I also have to say the vocals, they're more enunciated. I think they're really kind of lyrically plumbing these depths, as we were talking about, about these sort of psychological hells that, you know, he's going through. And as I mentioned, you know, the drums don't really sort of stay in the one place for all that long, but sometimes they do. And for me, that's really when I think Vitriol click into that next level gear. I Am Every Enemy starts off with like this kind of Morbid Angel style riff, but it's Locked in Thine Wisdom, I think, that really kind of takes the crown for that leaning into the groove. There's about sort of like, I would say, a good 40 seconds where you're really like headbanging to the same riff, which for me, I think adds to that sense of memorability. And I really, really loved that. And I really hope that we hear more of that going forward, you know. So a band that exploded onto the scene with probably one of the most venomous debuts I think I've heard in a very long time. They still keep that, you know, that bile, that bucolic rage that they have. But I think this time they're able to extend their palette a little bit more to include something that we may not have necessarily thought we would get from Vitriol. And as much as there was, you know, an improvement in terms of what the sort of memorability was, I thought that the back end of the album did let it down ever so slightly, became a little bit samey and didn't quite have that sort of feeling to be latched onto, whereas the front section of the record I think is absolutely really, really brilliant. So that's why I'm going to be giving this album an 8.5 out of 10. So thank you ever so much for watching this album review. If you did enjoy what you saw, please do hit that like and subscribe button. It helps me with that pesky algorithm and all that sort of stuff. And I'm a YouTuber, I have to say it. So let me know what you think of Vitriol's new album, Underneath Me. It comes out on the 26th of January, the day after my birthday. And I'll be seeing you guys very, very soon for another album review. Take care.